Welcome to this Astro Priestess Roundtable. I'm Kaylin Castell here with Nora Rochelle, Mar Guerrero, and Jamie Goldstein. So excited to share with you in this next solar cycle as the sun is getting ready to go into Scorpio. However, just to say right before the sun goes into Scorpio, as we mentioned in the last video, the sun is conjunct Venus at 29 degrees Libra on October 22nd. And it's the first time there's been a conjunction of Sun and Venus in Libra in a really long time, 150 years or so. And it's really bringing to light a lot around how do we do collaboration, cooperation, co-creation, and that's a lot of what our whole roundtable is all about because we each have our own point of view that they all interlock and interconnect and interweave, and we're so excited to share that with you. So, also on October 22nd, Mars is going out of bounds, and that means it's going outside the place where the sun can rise on the horizon, due north or as far north and as far south as possible. So, depending on which hemisphere you're in, which season that is, but the sun can only go so far, and the planets can sometimes go outside of that. And that's considered to be out of bounds. And the out of bounds time is a wild card. It means that it's not inside ordinary reality. And Mars is in Gemini, which is also kind of a wild card trickster energy anyway. It's going retrograde at the end of the month in Gemini. It's going to be in Gemini. It's already been in Gemini for a while. It's in Gemini for almost 8 months, I think. And so we have this wild card factor being magnified by the fact that Mars is going out of bounds. And by the way, planets can only go out of bounds when they're in Gemini, Cancer, or Sagittarius, Capricorn. That's the only time they can be in that far extreme. So we've got that happening. And then the sun is going into Scorpio the next day on October 23rd. Oh, and I forgot, on October 22nd, the day before this all happens, is Saturn stationing direct, creating another like still point where we can access a lot of different possibilities. Saturn being about structure and form in Aquarius. What are the new forms? What is the revolutionary energy that we can tap into now to bring into our lives and to bring into our planet, which really needs a revolutionary perspective, just saying. Anyway, so that's happening very, very quickly. Then we have Sun and Venus going into Scorpio on October 23rd. October 25th is our first eclipse, and it opens up an eclipse window that lasts until November 8th. And so what's really remarkable about this eclipse season is that it ends on an election day. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And the partial solar eclipse on October 25th, around 2 degrees Scorpio, the sun and Venus and the moon all around that place, and the moon then goes on to 7 degrees Scorpio. It moves 1 degree every 2 hours ish, about that much. Some days it moves 12 degrees, some days it moves a little more than 12 degrees, so it's not always exact, but it is going to pass by a fixed star called Kambalia. And this is the star that marks the foot of the priestess constellation. Now it's in Scorpio, and priestess is considered to be this constellation is also called Virgo. So this is just another way to tap into the fact that the signs are seasonal. They're related to the seasonal experience. We've got sun moving into Scorpio in the, it's the season of Scorpio coming up in that sign, but it's in the constellation of the priestess, and it's going to be passing this star, and it's the star of secret knowledge. I just love this star so much. I've talked about it. I've written about it. I'll put a little link to an article I've written about it in the show notes. And so we have the moon with this star, and then a couple days later on October 29th, on October 28th, Venus is exact with this star, and then the next day the sun is exact with this star. And then Mercury is exact with this star on November 2nd. So we've got a lot of planetary energy activating this star. And whenever planets are with a star, the ancient alchemists always saw this as a time to work with that star energy. And so if we think of the star of secret knowledge, what what kind of secrets can we tap into? What do we carry within our DNA? What are the secrets within our DNA? What are the secrets of the greater cosmos and the universe that we can tap into at this time? And literally, we have several days, really, probably starting now. The sun is within 6 degrees, I think, of Kambalia right now, and it's going to continue to be very close to the star for several days after all the exact conjunctions. And so the other thing I wanted to share about that is that Kambalia is the root word of Kambalia is the same as Shambhala or Shambhala. And that is a place that was considered to be it's a mythical place, hopefully that maybe was actually somewhere true at one point, but we don't maybe have it now, because it has to do with being a mythical land of peace, tranquility, and happiness. And so with all this energy here and with all the changes and everything that's happening that others are going to speak into more as well, we want to be energizing peace, tranquility, and happiness as well. And so we could ask this question. This is a question that we could ask ourselves while we've got this activation with the star. And that is, how are you accessing ancient knowledge within you, secret knowledge within you, in ways that support your divine intent? So meditating on that, journaling with that, being with that is a way to tune into this, the star energy that's being so magnified. So we open this eclipse window on October 25th with the star of secret knowledge. Then all these other activations with that star happen. Then we get to the closing of the eclipse window on November 8th, where this moon is going to be at 16 Taurus, very close to Uranus at 16 Taurus. And that adds, so anytime we're in an eclipse window, I like to call it an eclipse cauldron. And I did that for years. And one day in 1999, I was doing a ceremony with my priestess sisters, and this woman brought a cauldron, a little small cauldron, placed it in the center of the circle. We did this huge eclipse ceremony. And then at the end, she picks it up and turns it over, and on the bottom is stamped the word eclipse. I was like, okay, you really can't make that stuff up. It really is an eclipse cauldron. So oftentimes it means we feel like we're not in an ordinary time when we're in between eclipses. And then Mars is out of bounds, so we're not in an ordinary time. It's a wild card factor. Uranus is with the eclipse moon, which is also not an ordinary time or ordinary energy. It's like a revolutionary energy. It's bringing unexpected changes, things that we can't plan for, things that we don't necessarily know are going to happen. And it's on the US election day. So we've got, and in addition to that, Venus is in the underworld, which is not an ordinary time. So we have all these factors that are coming together to let us know that whatever we're holding in intention now is super important, and that we want to be sure that maybe we are envisioning a place like Shambhala, a place that, maybe play that song. I love that song, On the Road to Shambhala. It was a song that played when I was a kid, so, of course I love it. Anyway, and then let's see, what else was I wanted to say? So the eclipse window will close, the total lunar eclipse. And I was sharing this a little bit earlier, and I think I'll just bring it in now. In 2003, there was an eclipse similar to this one around the same time. Every 19 years, the moon comes back into the same thing. And this was called they were calling it the harmonic concordance, similar to the harmonic convergence. And that happened in 1987, but this was also creating a Star of David and all these other things that were happening with that particular eclipse. And now we have, instead of a Star of David being formed in the sky, we have Uranus with the moon. We've got Venus and Mercury opposite Uranus with the moon. We've got all these factors that are coming in to say this is a time we can really create something magnificent in terms of what we're perceiving in our reality, and how we want to focus our attention and intention at this time. So I think I might be out of time now. So I just want to answer this question really quickly. This is the question that we're going to answer, and that is, what would it take for us to let go, surrender, and trust so we can love more deeply? And for me, letting go of my need to work all the time. I think you mentioned that, Jamie, earlier too. And to be more in the place of just being rather than doing. I tend to be a doer. And so that's part of what I've been working on, releasing and letting go, and to activate the qualities of love, because that is a high vibrational energy. And when we are coming from that place of love, that is the energy we're putting into the world, and that changes everything. So I often like to proclaim myself as a superconductor of love, because in a superconductive field, nothing less than that high vibrational energy can penetrate it. So I will leave you with those thoughts and turn this over to Nura, who's going to wow us with her insights.
Oh, thank you, Kaylin. That is just all so amazing. I love thinking about the star of secret knowledge. I feel like that's the invitation. And in order to access that, it does feel like we get to take off even more layers. Like, we've been in this process of Venus and her descent and removing all of her vestments for, these past 8, 9 months, but now we're naked, but there's still more. It's like, I feel like that's Scorpio energy as well. It's like, you think you've hit the basement floor, but you're like, oh wait, there's a trap door, there's more down there. I had no idea. So it feels a lot like that. Like, we get to this place of revelation, which is also a very Scorpio season word for me, like this great revealing. It feels like that's what the energy of the eclipse season is bringing, these revelations. And it does feel like we've been on this journey, especially since 2020, with North and South Node in Gemini Sagittarius, of new information. And I feel like Mars in Gemini is kind of coming back and saying, let's take some action on this new information that we've received and release those limiting beliefs, South Node Sagittarius. So we had all of those eclipses relating to those energies. And then now it's like Taurus, Scorpio. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to be about it? What are we going to embody with this sacred knowledge? Not just think about it. It feels very much like an invitation to make it more real than it's ever been. So I feel excited, as I hope you can sense, about this time. And I also pulled a couple cards that I feel like speak so well to the energy, the invitation here. Queen of Pentacles. What I love about her is it's Pentacles, so it's Earth. This is very Taurus energy, which I think speaks a lot to this coming full moon lunar eclipse, with Uranus conjunct the moon as well at 16 degrees, which is a Cancerian degree, according to Nicholas Stoyanovich and his degree theory. And that corresponds a lot to how we're feeding ourselves and how we're nurturing ourselves. So that, combined with Taurus, those energies go together really naturally to me. If we think about all of the fear around the changes of our food systems and our economic systems, I feel like that also connects here. But what she says is, like, focus on your own stuff. She's looking at her own pentacle. She's looking at what she can do. She's empowered. She's not looking around and in this place of fear. I also did pull the Wheel of Fortune close by. So there will be changes, certainly, but it's like, in these spaces of change, if you stay at the center, you can kind of ride it a little bit more gracefully, with flexibility, with this this energy, this perspective of like, well, what else is possible? Like, maybe the things that are being swept away, the things that we're losing with this South Node in Scorpio and this new moon solar eclipse saying, like, purge what does not serve you anymore, is really an opportunity to actually release what's in the way of this secret knowledge, what's in the way of us accessing what will actually be of highest service for who we are now. So I've been saying this a lot. If you follow any of the things that I say, I tend to kind of get to a place of focus, and then that tends to be what energy sort of washes through me for a little while. So right now it's really been, what are we making space for who we're becoming? And that is really the energy of an eclipse portal, in my opinion. It's that we do these quantum release, and that in and of itself accelerates a process that has already been in action, but now we can see it. We can see a little bit more clearly. Oh, this is the fear pattern I've been holding on to. Oh, this is where I've been constricting. This is where I've been blocking myself. And now I can look at it, I could see it, I'm naked here in the underworld to myself and also to the people around me with this Venus Sun conjunction in Libra. It's like people are also mirroring to me that similar vulnerability. So now I'm feeling even safer to be vulnerable and naked and free. And like, wow, I can reconnect with my wild, I can reconnect with myself. And I can do all of this work kind of like out in the open. It feels like I don't have to hide it. So now I have more access because I'm not afraid, because I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting the people around me because I'm holding myself in a sacred space. And so therefore nobody can really enter my space unless they're also at a certain level of vibration. It's just I'm holding, that's Queen of Pentacles energy, right? Like nobody can even enter your space unless they're on par with your energy. So now I'm not afraid. That seems to me to be what's going on here with the potential of this eclipse. So focusing on what we can do feels very important. Another thing, well, actually, I feel like everything that I just said connects to the question of what am I really saying in order to surrender more to truth and love. And I think I just completely reworded the question there, but I think you know what I'm saying. And I'm very much releasing fear. And anywhere that I have almost taken responsibility for other people's reactions to me, and then used their reaction to sort of augment how I show up in the world. And I'm releasing that, and it's hugely freeing. So I will just leave that there for you all to pick up however it makes sense for you. And so a few of the transits that really are speaking to me right now, in addition to this beautiful eclipse portal, is the Venus opposing Uranus. And this feels very important because Venus is a planetary ruler of the North Node. So already we want to be watching her. That's always my advice for people if they're not sure of where to look in the chart, because there's so many things to look at, especially if you're new or learning astrology. It's like, how can you make it simple? So to me, it's very effective to look at the nodal axis and then their planetary rulers and see what they're doing. So Venus has been incredibly active and will continue to be during this eclipse portal. And with this opposition to Uranus, but Uranus is in her sign. Uranus is in Taurus. It's like Uranus is at Venus's house. So there's something there. They're having a little bit more of a conversation, maybe a polite conversation, but they're still going to be who they are, right? So Uranus, the disruptor, the one who's coming in and saying, we got to make this change. But it almost feels like on the back end, Venus is like, yeah, I support you. I support you in what in the disruptions you're doing, because this will help everybody connect more with their creativity. This will, like, if you shake yourself out of an old stagnant comfort zone, you will create a new comfort zone because you will expand your capacity. So it feels like that's like Venus over here in Scorpio, kind of secret in the closet. Like, I'm whispering to you, I'm on your side. Like, we're helping. This is helpful, even though it's sometimes terrifying. So I'm purposefully bringing humor into this, kind of this lightness, so you can feel like they're all here for us. Like, everything that's happening is happening for us. And we kind of get to pick up the energy in terms of what will serve us, but that requires us to make space first. So that's what I feel like this Venus-Uranus opposition is inviting. And I'm really energetically focused in on this. So that Venus-Uranus opposition occurs November 5th. And then November 6th, 7th, we've got this Venus square Saturn. So Venus is active. She's having a conversation with Saturn from 18 degrees of Scorpio, square Saturn at 18 degrees Aquarius, which is a Virgoan degree. And again, correlating to the intestines and our process of assimilation. So I feel like there's something in being invited for us to assimilate, perhaps in a new way. Maybe we've been holding on to something, we've been chewing on it for a while, but we haven't fully digested it in relation to how we show up in the world, or consensus reality, Saturn, or how we're structuring our reality, Saturn. But there's this opportunity to perhaps just release something here. It's a last quarter square. So there's this release energy. And usually at the last quarter square phasal relationship, we tend to come into a greater level of wisdom. So it does seem like the Venusian qualities of peace and harmonization are applying to this Saturn, like rigidity. Like, what have we been so like death grip holding on to that we don't want to see change in our society? But Venus is like, well, maybe I'm going to butter you up a little bit. and show you how this is actually beneficial, or show you how like there's another way to look at it. There's a way that these changes can be empowering, Scorpio, rather than take your power away, which is a shadow of Scorpio. So it's all in how we choose to connect with that. And then also very close to that time, we have our sun at 15 degrees Scorpio, which is a cross quarter time. But it also ends the via combusta, which translates in Latin to the burning way. So that Al-Biruni is an astrologer who he's the one who really made this, brought this to life, and talking about these final 15 degrees of Libra through to the first 15 degrees of Scorpio as being kind of treacherous times. Saturn being exalted in Libra, kind of energetically behind, I think, reasoning why that final 15 degrees of Libra, and then Mars also ruling Scorpio, and then that inner time in between, I think, having a lot to do with the initiation portal. Like you kind of go through to have everything old burned away. And so it feels like that, combining with Venus Underworld, combined with Eclipse portal, like we can really look at our limiting patterns and actually release them. And because sometimes it happens incrementally, but other times it can happen quantum, where it's just like everything at once. It's like, okay, I've had enough. Like I can just decide in this moment, this can change in a nanosecond, this habit, this pattern. So I feel like we're actually being supported. Like some of these transits and these aspects might seem scary, but I think it's scary only in showing you, well, that's actually the fear that you get to purge. So that's what's coming through for me. And I hope you all, just remember, like, you're so well resourced. You have everything you need for the divine plan of your life. And that's, I think, what the universe wants to show you right now. But thank you for listening to my passionate Sagittarian speech there. And I'm going to pass it off to Mar.
Thank you, Nora. Amazing, all the sharings. For me, it's coming a lot about that secret knowledge and the connection with love, right? Like how truth and love is connected, and as well with all of the stories, like how can we reframe the mythical stories with that Mars in Gemini turning retrograde at the end of the month, and saying all the stories that we are telling ourselves globally, they need a revision. They need to see darkness not as a place of evil, but as a place of regeneration, that we were talking before recording, that the Venus Underworld, it's like we cannot see her because she's so close to the sun, that is a lot of light as well. So there is this plainness between light and dark, that as soon as we turn too much to one side, I think there is an imbalance. And that is a lot about Libra moving into Scorpio. I feel we have been very unbalanced in the sense that the darkness is the place where we are born, basically, in the sense of like the womb of our mothers, the earth, that if you put a plant, a seed into the earth, and there is too much light, it will burn. And I think that the mystery of Scorpio is the mystery of death, and how they are necessary as part of our cycles of life, and we cannot control that process. We will die when we die. We will fall in love when we fall in love, and we find death with someone else when that's the time. And I feel that's something that we are releasing in a way, the protections that we have when we relate to other people, to really relate from the heart and from our depth as well, because it requires courage, and that Mars can help us, but it does require to be very in love with yourself first. So then if the other person is hurting you, and that's very Scorpio in a way, like I always feel that there is this relationship with power and manipulation sometimes with the Scorpio when wanting something. And if you truly trust that what is yours will come to you, there is no need to manipulate others to love you. There is no need. And there is this eclipse season that is coming to me so much, right? Like sometimes we are not aware how we are like contacting someone because we want something from them, not just because we really want them to know that we are seeing them, or like, oh, congratulations because this happened to you, and that's it. So there is a very subtle line that I think for Scorpio is a mastery of really going deep into your power, so then you are not abused from other people, and you are not abusing other people either. And I think this eclipse portal, both of them are really talking about that. And Venus in the solar eclipse, there with the south node, with Mercury, and that Mars in Gemini answering to that, like that Mercury answering to the, well, talking to each other. Like Mars in Gemini is like the Mercury. And how sometimes even words are not our only way of communication, and that is also part of the secret knowledge. I feel that we need to open our means to get knowledge, and something that is also very, very emphasized in my life now is the need to slow down with that Taurus North Node, to truly listen to what is the energy of the moment. And sometimes with astrology, there is this complication of like looking into the past, looking into the future, and how now everything is alive, right? Like the eclipses are already happening in a way because we're talking about them. And with the solar eclipse, I always feel that there is this new beginning because it's a new moon in asteroids. But in this one is with the south node. So it's like, what do we, exactly what Nora was saying, like what do we need to release to create a space for these new beginnings? And then in the full moon, it's like in your face as well with Saturn, right? Like if you didn't see it before, you're going to see it now. And it's all for our greatest good. But the soul power, I feel, if sometimes something really painful has to happen to us, it will happen, because the soul is very powerful. It can really go through a lot, basically. So it's like, I think we are embodying that power of saying every human being has an immense source of power, and we just need to remember that. And I feel that the mystery of Scorpio is like, and every time that I have clients, students that with the Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer, with the water signs, there is always, we don't know. Like society doesn't really master these signs. And how can we listen to their truth? That it will be different than air truth. So all of these, and with Jupiter going back to Pisces, I think that's emphasized, and Jamie wanted to talk about this, but I feel there is this going back, really going deep, going inside, and in order to relate with other people from the bottom of who we are, and release any protection that is not allowing us to love us. That's the beginning. Then love others, and then trust the universe that everything is happening in a sacred order that we cannot control. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Mar, and all the Astro Priestesses. I've so loved getting to receive all of your wisdom. And as I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm letting so many new insights and downloads come through as I'm listening to each of your wisdom. And so I think where I'll just start is, we've been in this time of really accelerated evolutionary growth, particularly this year, with the North Node and Uranus coming together incredibly. Like the energy feels so sped up. The ability to take these huge quantum timeline jumps just seems more open than at least ever before I've experienced in my lifetime. And something really powerful is that every full moon we've had since July has activated an outer planet. So we started with the full moon with Pluto, Capricorn full moon with Pluto. Then we went, Saturn's, like a social planet, but then we had the Aquarius full moon with Saturn. Then we had the Pisces full moon with Neptune. We had the Aries full moon with Chiron. These are when these full moons of these planets are opening up incredible, like deep evolutionary growth, because when the outer planets are activated, particularly like talking Pluto, Uranus, Chiron, Neptune, these are deep portals of evolutionary growth. And now it's like the climax. It's like the grand finale in many senses, where we're going in this eclipse season. We're having the Taurus lunar eclipse with Uranus. And I am just seeing this as this huge, huge timeline opening to really take an evolutionary jump forward. And then what's so interesting is the next full moon after that, we're going to go to a full moon with a personal planet, Mars. That will be the Gemini full moon. And then this is where we'll have an opportunity, like in a very personal way, to actually integrate all of these deeper evolutionary themes. But I really feel like the kind of climax is this Taurus lunar eclipse with Uranus. And just to kind of ease into it with the start of the eclipse season, and really the Venus Sun conjunction that we have at October 22nd, Venus behind the Sun and the heart of the Sun meeting at 22 degrees of, or not 22 degrees, at 29 degrees of Libra. And this is this really powerful resurrection point where, and I love in our last video, Caitlin, you so beautifully said, as Venus goes into the underworld, we're dying to who we're not, to be reborn into more of the truth of who we are, who we're becoming. And one of the big things I've been really sensing into how like this Libra Scorpio energy, because then it's like the Venus Sun conjunction is very interconnected with this Scorpio total. It's not total. Oh my gosh, my Pisces Mercury, I cannot talk. The Scorpio solar eclipse that we're going to have, they're just a few days apart. These two energies are very, very interconnected. And one, if we're looking at Venus is in her Capricorn cycle. So the Capricorn meta goddess is on the stage here, and this grander 19-month Venus cycle that started in January of this year. One of the big insights I'm having on this cycle is we're creating the templates for new ways of relating, really, as we're going into the Aquarian age or the new earth, or however you want to say it, that we're creating templates for new ways of relating, ways of sacred relating. And if you think of Capricorn as like in many senses, it's like the operating manual. So this Venus cycle, it's like we're getting, okay, how are we going to create this new operating manual, the new templates for sacred relating? And now Venus is in the underworld in Libra, and we're having the shift from Venus meeting the Sun in Scorpio to coming into Libra. And something I'm really sensing into as well, Venus was meeting the Sun and Scorpio, over this 100-year time period or so. And we do have one more time Venus will meet the Sun in Scorpio, which will be in a few years from now, but actually 4 years from now. And we've all been working out on a personal collective level, working out of balance power dynamics in relationships. And now that the star points are moving into Libra, it's like what we've been healing and what we've been working out, we can come into greater collaboration and connection. And something I've been really sensing into how this Venus star point and the Scorpio solar eclipse just being a few days apart, one of the big intuitive messages is that we are healing, all the shame programming that we've had in our society. And a lot of how we heal the shame programming is we show up naked, essentially. And this is Venus in the underworld. We show up naked, and the truth of who we are, we reveal, we let others see those things about ourselves for whatever reason, through the conditioning, the shame programming that we thought was unlovable about ourselves, all those authentic qualities. And then what do? We deny them, we splinter them off, they get fragmented off, and they get pushed down in our psyche. And we try to take on qualities that aren't us so we can fit in and we can belong. And over that works, as we're children for a little while, that works, right? It's adaptive. But as we go through our lives, it's no longer adaptive. It takes an incredible amount of life force energy to suppress the truth of who we are and trying to take on qualities that are not us. It's incredibly draining, and it siphons off our creativity, and it drains our creativity. And this is very much like this Taurus solar eclipse that we're going to have November 8th with Uranus. It's wanting to like reclaim the magical creators that we are, the wild genius of our bodies. And so there's something really powerful here. And I found myself, as Venus has been traveling through the underworld, we all have them, right? We all have these things where, like, if people know about how different we are in this way, they're not going to love us. They're going to reject us. They're going to abandon us. And we create all these stories around it that I can't be seen in the truth of who I am. And we tend to make them a lot bigger in our mind. Like, if anybody knows this about me, or I have this quality, they're going to reject me. I know it. They're going to abandon me. And I've been really consciously practicing with Venus and Libra with my intimate relationships, letting myself be seen, sharing some of those things that I thought were like really scary about myself. And it's just so funny. Like, one person I'm thinking of, a very intimate person in my life, they're like, I'm like sharing the thing, and they're like, wait, what's the thing that you're sharing? Like, it was so not a big deal to them that I thought was like, this really like, oh my gosh, I'm like so scared of not being loved because of it. And they're like, they didn't even like really catch what I was saying, because it wasn't a big deal to them. So there's something powerful, because when we heal the shame programming, we have more access to our heart essence, and we have more access to create and to move into deeper intimacy. And this the Scorpio solar eclipse, Scorpio is a sign of intimacy. Libra is where we start to get to know the sacred other, and we start learning collaboration, connection. Wait, you have a different perspective than me, and let me take your perspective into consideration with mine. And then Scorpio is, now that we've kind of gotten, we're testing out collaboration. Now we go into deep intimacy, right? We reveal the truth of who we are, and we start to share energy with others. And so there's something here about healing the shame programming, so we can share our energy with others from this purer place, from our heart, from the truth of our being. So then we can create with another. The Taurus Scorpio axis is very much about creating and fertility and our resourcefulness. And so we're healing a lot of fear. And I'm sensing with this really this eclipse season, with the sun activating the South Node, so much healing of so much karmic clearing of how has fear and shame gotten us in all these like messy energetic entanglements that aren't really the truth of our soul. And when we heal that, we can actually create connections with others from a more heart-centered place, from a more conscious place, an empowered place, a place of love. And so I'm just really sensing that. And I know I don't even know if I'll get to talking about the other things, because I know I've been probably going over my time now, but just very briefly, with that Taurus solar eclipse, Saturn is making a T-square with Saturn in Aquarius. Saturn will be at 18, and the sun will be at 18 Aquarius. It will be direct at that point, still in that kind of stationing energy, not moving past that 18 degree yet, where it's stationing direct. The moon at 16 Taurus with Uranus at 16 Taurus, and then the sun at 16 Scorpio. Now, this is kind of like the last big activation of the Uranus-Saturn square, which has been this big, like creating this, it's been this like this pressure cooker of energy for us to have a breakthrough, a break free. Right, breaking free of the old, rigid, stagnant ways of being in the world, and to have this breakthrough, break free. And I'm sensing this eclipse is going to put so much internal pressure to really break through those old self-limiting beliefs, those the stagnant habits and patterns and those kinds of things. I mean, it's really powerful energy to, like, I think, Caitlin, you said, create form and structure for these new timelines, these higher timelines. So now Saturn is going to finally get moving. And I feel like, okay, now once Saturn gets moving after this eclipse, we can really start to crystallize some of, even just in this time of such accelerated change and all these like timeline upgradings or quantum leaps, we can actually start to crystallize some of these things into our physicality. And as Jupiter will be dipping into Pisces at that, it will be, I have the date here. Jupiter goes back into Pisces October 28th. So this is right in between the eclipses. And as Jupiter is going retrograde, it's in going into Pisces, it's dipping back into what was coming through from that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction on April 12th. And we may have not felt anything big or come through at that time, but what it's like a new moon, new Jupiter and Neptune. It's seeding a grander 13-year cycle of connecting to a higher vision, a higher dream, a higher inspiration. And to be able to channel that in and to start to bring it through into our physicality. And then Jupiter went into Aries, and we may have felt in May, and we may have felt an initial, I'm going to start running forward with this new inspiration. Jupiter in Aries is just like, I'm going towards my full body yes on what's going to fill me with meaning and purpose. But then we may have come up against some like, oh, wait, but I still have some self-limiting beliefs that are actually keeping me back from just moving towards my full body yes. So Jupiter retrograde has been about clearing out what is energetically blocking us from really moving forward with our full body yes, with passion and excitement and enthusiasm to bring through our higher vision, our higher dream, our higher inspiration. So now that Jupiter is dipping back into Pisces, we're going to get a little taste of that again. And we get to reorient, we get to recalibrate and continue to like clear out any of those energetic blockages, because we are all here for a really important purpose. And it's not always about what we're doing. A lot of it is our way of being. And I think Venus and Capricorn cycle is teaching us, when we're just holding our energy, when we are in our being nature, we become magnetic. And that is the best medicine we can offer. And then any action can come through that place. And as Mars is squaring Neptune, as Mars is stationing retrograde, Gemini, so I call all the mutable signs the multidimensional signs. Where Neptune is in Pisces, this is the ocean of oneness, the celestial sea, all the timelines existing simultaneously. Gemini, the next mutable or multidimensional sign, is how do we pick a timeline, essentially? And we do that through sending our mental energy into that timeline. And then Mars is there directing our energy out into that timeline. And then it reflects back to us. We're energetically attuning to it. Gemini is a possibility in the moment that we can attune to. So this Mars retrograde is about really reorienting what timelines are we putting our energy into. And as Mars and Neptune are squaring, there's this, again, like kind of this reactivation, that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. Okay, we had a big vision, inspiration come through. We may not even be consciously aware of it. Now Mars is going retrograde in Gemini, which now we're getting to shift. What timelines are we putting our energy into? Are they actually aligned with our higher vision, our higher dream, our higher inspiration? And Gemini bridges worlds. So we have all this world bridging, timeline bridging available. And a lot of it is just slowing down, because Mars and Gemini, we can try to force things, force. And we're just going to be like going in little, not getting anywhere, you know? And so it's about slowing down and then letting the timelines come to us while Mars is in retrograde. And then we can, once Mars goes direct in January, then we can start to push our energy out into the new timelines. And what are we surrendering? I forgot the question. I feel it. But for me to come more into my heart, and Nora, you kind of inspired this. It's with our conversation before this. For me, what am I surrendering? I'm surrendering expectations of how I thought certain aspects of my life would look, and just letting it go. Because I'm noticing that resistance to attaching to them. I'm just creating all this energetic resistance. And so it's just letting things be what they'll be. And I'm actually finding, even when things that are starting to unfold that are in alignment with my heart's desire, I'm wanting to grip on to something that's actually maybe at a lower frequency or not in alignment with my heart's desire, because it's what I thought it would be. And so it's surrendering the expectation, just dropping into the exquisiteness of the present moment, dropping into my heart, and letting myself be wowed by the present moment. And just I want to share, this is actually something a beautiful, I had some friends traveling and visiting me last week, and one of my friends, this was kind of this mantra he was sharing, and I was listening to him share it while we were out in the forest and the river, and he was saying, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but I'm extremely magnetic to my heart's highest desires, because Scorpio is a magnetic sign. So, and then he was saying, I'm extremely magnetic to my heart's highest desires, and I'm extremely magnetic to my genius codes. And I was like, wow, Scorpio Taurus with Uranus, our genius codes, really powerful. And it was, I think he'd be okay with me sharing. And he even had me put my hands in the water, like making the triangle, and putting my hands just on a river that was barely flowing and watching the ripples. And I started saying it in my mind, and they knew exactly when I started saying, I'm extremely magnetic to my heart's highest desires, because the ripples sped up. They were quicker ripples. They were closer together. And then I would stop. I just let my mind go idle, and the ripples would slow down. And then I start up again. I'm extremely magnetic to my heart's highest desires. And I know these things. I know we have influence over, our thoughts, our emotions change the molecular structure of water. But it was amazing to watch as I was saying that in my mind, just change the speed of the ripples. It was incredible. So just remember that we are magnetic, and that when we can really take that intention, I'm extremely magnetic to my heart's highest desires. It's really powerful. So thank you. Oh my gosh, I think I talked too long. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh, I love our roundtable wisdom and everything that everybody shared. I hope you all will decide to rejoin us next month when we look at what's happening when the sun moves in to Sagittarius. And so until then, blessed be.